Do not seek seventh stage realization. Taken from the ALETHEON, Volume 2, page 559. The divine avataric self-revelation of his divine presence, Avatar Adidar Samraj. For my devotee, salvation is not the achieving of seventh stage realization. For my devotee, salvation is radical or always at the root devotion to me, the divine avataric master. Most ultimately, radical devotion to me demonstrates seventh stage realization of me as I am. But if the seventh stage of life is not yet my devotee's actual and perfectly demonstrated and necessarily formally acknowledged realization for my devotee to intensively desire and thereby to seek seventh stage realization is inherently painful and ego-binding. Do not seek seventh stage realization, rather always and simply recognize me as I am, and on that basis whole-bodily responsively turn to me, and be thus and thereby in intrinsically ego-transcending devotional communion with me. Seventh stage realization is revealed and given by me and as me, always by means of my divine avataric transcendental spiritual grace, in my blessing response to my right and true devotee's whole bodily recognition responsive turning to me. In practice, the only by me revealed and given radical reality of Adidam, or Adidam Vishiradam, is to give your life whole bodily, or as a psychophysical totality, to intrinsically ego-surrendering, ego-forgetting, ego-transcending, and altogether devotionally recognition responsive turning to me, not to indulge in phony, imaginary self-imagery, or in seeking for ego glorification. Reality way of Adidam is radical, or always at the root, and always whole bodily recognition responsive devotion to me, just that and nothing else. If you simply tacitly intrinsically forget your separate and separative ego I and all of its patterns of seeking, what remains for you to transcend or to realize? When you truly recognize me as I am, and on that basis responsively and whole-bodily devotionally turn to me, you have, moment to moment, always already transcended your separate and separative ego self, and therefore you have, in any and every moment, already and tacitly realized what is to be realized. The ego, however, is a fool, and like a fool, the ego throws away the opportunity I offer to everyone and to all and all. All of the aspects of practice of the radical reality way of Adidam or Adidam Vishiradam, including all the forms of right life obedience to me and in due course, all the forms of the perfect knowledge of me, and simply the intrinsic and inevitable extensions of radical or always at the root and always whole bodily recognition responsive devotion to me. And they are, therefore, and always simply the means whereby my devotee responsively and tacitly, rather than strategically and self-consciously, brings the various functions of life into conformity with right and true devotion to me. Radical devotion to me is itself salvation. Radical devotion to me is always the first and foundation practice to be established and maintained. If you constantly practice radical devotion to me, your seeking, your fantasizing, and your self-deception become obsolete, and instead, you constantly practice right life obedience to me, and in due course, perfect knowledge of me, On the basis of the practice of radical devotion to me, right life obedience to me, and perfect knowledge of me, you become profoundly clear and steady in the life demonstration of egoless service to me. The most rudimentary rule of right and true devotional practice in my divine avataric company is always to bring gifts to me, and always to keep your word to me. If my blessing response to you is pleasant and positive, it is an affirmation that your gifts and your word and vow to me are right and true and good. If I criticize you, then you should understand that you have been giftless and not true to your word and vow to me, and therefore you have not related to me appropriately. However, if you are truly devotionally turned to me, you do not react negatively to my criticism, and you do not indulge in feeling bad about yourself. If you are truly devotionally turned to me, my criticism converts you at heart, then and there. If you are truly devotionally turned to me, you will never want to be criticized by me again, and therefore you will constantly relinquish everything that might again bring about my criticism. If you are truly devotionally turned to me, you will, even if criticized by me, always thereafter constantly bring me pleasing gifts and constantly fulfill your word and vow to me, and thus and thereby you will always and constantly enjoy the whole bodily blessing of moment-to-moment devotional and, in due course, transcendental spiritual communion with me. Only such blessed enjoyment demonstrates itself in due course as seventh stage realization of me as I am. Da, da, da.